I'll need to start it up again. You hearing okay, Evan?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you just a couple of little things about electrical hazards. But does anybody out there have anything they want to ask or add to electrical hazards or anything that has happened to them? Electrical? Anybody been shocked? Anybody got 110? You've got 110? Good.
Yeah.
And what happened? What was the story?
When I was younger, we had an old boom box and the cord was frayed. And I think I was either plugging it in or unplugging it.
And you got a good jolt. I mean, do you remember how it felt and what happened to it?
It was very fast, but yeah, it was hard to punch fingers.
At the time, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, what's
Yeah.
110 feel like?
Well, it depends. It depends on where you get it, and what the amperage is, what the 110 is the voltage, but depends on how strong the juice is and where it is and where you get it at, right? It depends on all kinds of things. 110 can kill you. 220 is more likely to kill you. 440 probably will kill you. And then on up, high voltage transmissions is above that. The high transmission lines, if we get some kind of arc, like you can't, Cal OSHA and OSHA, which is a Occupational Safety and Hazard Association, says that you cannot put workers within 10 feet of a high voltage transmission line, period. You cannot put workers within 10 feet. So if I got a roof on a 3-story building I'm building at the corner of Mission Ridge and Arbolado and Master Suite, which is the 3rd story, that roof is within 10 feet of existing high voltage transmission lines. I couldn't get guys up there. And it cost my owners $10,000, an even $10,000 bill, and this was 20 years ago, to move that pole up the street like 10 feet. So it was higher. So it's a real thing, and so I had to deal with that thing because we measured, we knew we had a high voltage line, and I couldn't finish the roof. I couldn't get guys up there because if I did, and I didn't get caught, but I got caught by OSHA. I mean, not that I didn't get caught, but if OSHA found out and I got written up and no one got hurt, it only cost me about $10,000 for that thing. But if anybody got hurt, and if it was considered willful, I could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you got to be careful about stuff like that. And I had a guy working for me who was accident prone. His name was Daniel, and he was young. I think he was like very early 20s. He might even not even been 20s. Big strapping kid, really good kid. Lived in Isla Vista with his girlfriend, who was one of the daughters. I don't know if she was the main daughter, but a daughter of a man named Lehman, of Shearson Lehman. So we're talking about extremely mega wealthy people. His girlfriend was, and Daniel was accident prone. He eventually was disabled totally in a cave-in after he left my employ. But while he was in my employ, he's backing up like this with a big full height cabinet, pantry cabinet in this woman's house, McCune, Sarah McCune, another super wealthy woman, very big in philanthropy. And she had a German guy who was her handyman, who was doing all the electrical. And so there was a box made off that was live. And Daniel backed into it and he got 110. And he couldn't let go of the thing. Plus, he's the kind of guy, he wouldn't have just dropped the cabin anyway. So he got hit he got a few second jolt. I didn't see it, but he said it was like, could have been 5 or 10 seconds. He just couldn't let go. And so Sarah and I decided that neither one of us would want to meet his father as a workers' comp claim. Give him the time, but we'll just pay him for a week. I'm going to take a week off and hope he'd be okay, because really there was no nerve damage, no burns, no anything. So, and I researched it as much as I could at the time because there's no internet, right? Internet wasn't even a dream somebody had. But when you get that kind of juice, what happens is it's like you did about 20,000 curls, right? He got it in the arm, and it's just, you work that muscle, just makes the muscle expand and contract, 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 contract. So his muscles were super sore. He was sore all over. So I checked on him every day. You know, he was sore, and he was all freaked out. And I kept telling him, it's just fine. It's just like you had a big workout. You're going to be fine. You just need a little rest and just take it easy. We're going to pay for a week. You're going to be fine. And so I think it happened on a Monday, and on Friday he came into my office and I said, I got to talk to you. Sat down and said, I can't get an erection. That's not the fault of this accident, I swear, because I can see the claim, right? Oh my gosh, it's like it's unending. It's, you know. So I talked him down, and he was fine. It turned out just fine, But I'll never forget. It was like, oh, please don't make this be a consequence of this guy's accident, because that, you know, workers' comp, and I probably shouldn't have gotten myself started about workers' comp, but workers' comp is unbelievable. It's just it's an unbelievable scam in some ways. I think I consider insurance to be legal extortion, but extortion all the same. But I've had over the years as a licensed, bonded and insured general contractor with a C6, Kevin making no work and finish work, having been insured the whole time. That's just nightmare stuff. I mean, just nightmare stuff. I don't even want to start talking about it, so I won't. Just suffice to say, it can be a real drag. And which brings me to just kind of finish with the whole safety thing. If I didn't give you the shtick from before, the safety is really important. And in this business that we're in the construction trades, there's so many ways to get hurt. They're too numerous to count in every trade, because it's a physical trade, and you're working around things like electricity that can zap you, sharp things that can cut you or pierce you, heights that you can fall from, things you can run in. Just the list goes on. So you have to be careful. That's why we stress safety, because accidents can be minor, like splinters and small cuts that can be band-aided, to catastrophic loss of limb, loss of life, loss of everything you hold dear, and everything in between. So safety is never to be taken lightly, please. You can't produce if you're injured. You don't ever want to be injured. You know, you're responsible for your safety. No one is responsible for your safety. Now, the job sites you work on and the people that control and are in charge of those job sites, they are responsible for keeping a safe job site. Yes. And no one is responsible for keeping you safe. That's your job. 100%. You can't blame that on anybody. Unfortunately, the way the system works is that if I'm your employer and I do everything I possibly can to ensure you have a safe environment to work in, a safe job site, an uncluttered job site, the guards are on things, and I take great pains to have, first aid and keep everything as safe as possible. And through your own bad judgment, hungover action, thoughtless move, you injure yourself. It had nothing to do with me and everything to do with your bad judgment. I, as your employer, are now on the hook. I'm on the hook for you screwing up yourself. Do I sound like I'm a little, I'm a little bugged by that? Yeah, I'm completely bugged by that. It's like, so be responsible for your own safety, because just the fact that you got workers' comp and somebody will take care of it, and your medical bills will be taken care of, you'll get some kind of a stipend. I know that you would all rather be working than be injured and not working, because to not work, you got to be injured, unless you're a scofflaw, you're faking it. And if that's your game, then that's what you're going to do. nothing I say is going to make a difference. But so I have this thing about safety where I believe that safety has everything to do with me. My safety has everything to do with me being aware, fully aware of where my physical body and every part of my physical body is in relation to everything else in the whole world, especially dangerous things like whirling saw blades and router bits and sharp edges and corners and places I can fall, all those dangerous things and everything else, because I'll be 74 this year. That's 3/4 of a century, and my skin is so thin, and I take blood thinners because of the heart attack. Not blood thinners, but I take a baby aspirin, that I can just literally, I could bump into this and I'd have a bruise. And it wouldn't really hurt me, but I'm kind of vain and I don't really like this. And I'm sorry I even have to point that out to you. Now you know how bad my arms look, but just because I'm still not being as safe as I need to be in the stuff I do. Now, most of this stuff is me RVing. Just the stuff that you have to do and climbing ladders and tying down stuff and lifting bikes on off and all the stuff that I do RVing, I get dinged up. So the little bruises will clear up in a few days. But the point is, I have evidence when I'm acting unsafely, even on the smallest things, when my physical being comes in contact with something else in the world. And virtually everything but my wife is going to hurt me that I come in contact with, right? She could hurt me too. And occasionally I come in contact with her and get hurt. It's usually off this diamond ring she has. That thing hurts me all the time. But so I don't really want to come in contact with anything unless it's not going to hurt, right? Shaking hands, picking up, touching stuff, just like having a knife. I always have a knife. I always have a knife to cut apples, open envelopes. There's a million things I do with a knife. And I'm very careful with this knife because I've been cut by knives before. So I know where its blade is. I know where my fingers are. So be careful, right? Don't get hurt because you're the one that's going to pay the price. In the case of Daniel, it could have been your offspring that you never have. Poor Daniel. I wonder where he's doing that, what he's doing now. Okay, so we talked about the deadly dozen and week 3 lecture. Was that a buy? I don't remember something. So let's do this. All right, I'm gonna try to do 45 minutes at a whack. We've been here for 46. Let's come back at 7 o'clock. We'll take a short break. Come back at 7. We'll hit it all nice and okay. And Frank, you're going to remind me, please?
Remind you of what?
About record. Oh.
Rod, you're on mute.
I am on mute.
And your,
Not
and your,
anymore.
and your camera's off. Camera's off right there. Where it says start video.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Camera's off too. So you were totally right. Camera's totally off. I totally blew you off. So it probably does stay on. Yeah, you gotta say, hey, no, dude, it's off. You're so right. It's off. Now we're on. Now, where the heck was I? Okay. So before I learned to mic up my interviewees, I was mic'd, or I might not even have been mic'd. It might have been a camera microphone. So the sound coming from Rich, unfortunately, may not be as good as I'd like it to be, but I'm going to try to turn it up, see if we can hear more. But Rich McCoy, so this, we're going to see a house that I built last year that was an existing house that we pretty much tore down. We left some walls, and then we added on to it. We did it well, all new finishes. So we did pretty much all the exterior finishes off, all the interior finishes were off, took out a fair amount of walls, stripped the roof, added on to it, and then put it all back together in a little bit different format. So Rich McCoy Electric is our electrician. He did the AV stuff and the smart house stuff that there is, and all the wiring for electrical. And the plan, I actually wanted to show you the plan, and I think at one point I will show you the plan if somebody reminds me, so you can get a sense of what the electrical for this house that we're talking about, that we're going to film and walk through here, what that electrical looked like on a plan. Okay. And not very well, this particular plan. I'm super unimpressed with electrical stuff. Sometimes you get a good plan, tells you a lot. Sometimes
Was it something you were interested in, or was it just a job that was available?
Yeah, summer job, yeah. I was working, I quit my job to
You
go
did
for
this
sports and then got cut from sports. Baseball team didn't make it after all, so then I was looking for a job. So I went and got a job after school at electrician.
So just out of curiosity, did you start by just clean up and stuff like that? Or did you start pulling wire?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you follow up on that's a question.
Yeah. And, oh, I forgot, electricians, they don't clean up after themselves. What am I thinking? Picking up stuff, nah, that's somebody else's job.
We used to warehouse in snow, so probably the beginning of the day we shovel on snow. and then,
pardon my finger.
get water,
You're an idiot.
and then start.
When did you think you were gonna make a career out of this? How far into it?
You know, it's interesting. I think in a lot of careers, where once you feel like you're good at something, then it's really more something you want to do than it is. Get it, get it.
So you started your own company, you get a contractor's license first? Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I worked for people for a lot of years and then moved here to wherever. And for some guys here and then started my own company here when they retired. In 92, started my company in 92, and then 92, I guess, and then just been here ever since.
What's the bulk of your work? Is it pre-wiring new construction?
No, we really do it all. I mean, they used to say, 50, 20, 50, whatever. I mean, it just goes in cycles. Sometimes we're doing all commercial. The next time we're doing residential commercial. I mean, our
Show of hands, how many people here work in the construction trades right now? How many are interested in working in the construction trades?
specialty is home automation, and it has been since I started.
I thought he said home, you know what he says? I thought he said home animation. Yeah, he doesn't. He says home automation. For the longest time, I thought, what the heck does he mean by that?
For the company as a helper doing houses that had automation in them. And
Uh-huh.
here in Santa Barbara, a lot of the houses had automation. We were doing automation when companies didn't do the whole thing. We had to integrate 4 or 5 or 6 different companies to make it work. way they kind of invent things. Now, these automation companies, a lot of them are doing the whole thing. So it's gotten simpler through the years, and it'll do more.
Could you explain just a little bit on what is home automation?
Automation, from your phone. I mean, people are starting to get to know it now, but back in the 90s, it didn't. But from your phone or from the internet, we can open your curtain, lock your doors, turn on your TV,
Turn on your lights, turn on your microwave,
right.
your oven.
your air conditioning.
And now, even with the AV stuff, we have reboot your routers and reboot your AV equipment for the customer to cycle it without them, having to go find the.
So remotely, you can do that remotely. Wow, that's incredible. So if I understand it right, your business, it seems to me, you do electrical work wiring new houses, wiring remodeled houses, like standard, duplex outlets and lighting and something like that, as well as home animation, all the AV stuff, the TV stuff, the sound stuff, all that jazz, right? You do, I've seen your trucks do, your boom lift do like outside lighting, like Italian lights and stuff like that, parking lot lighting. Solar arrays.
Solar, there's so many solar contractors out there. We've been so busy, we haven't really pushed that either, but we do. have done it.
Yeah, you did Ted's solar array. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we won the award on that one or something at the time from the city at the time.
How many KW is that? Okay, well, it's a nice looking array. I saw it today, as a matter of fact, I was asked about it.
Yeah, so it just evolves. I mean, it's like it grows from one thing to another.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, if you're in the place to get the work and do the work, then that's where you are, and that's what you do, right?
We're fortunate to be in Santa Barbara, California, where people want those things, and the sun's out, and they have to do it, and if they want it, we try to do it for them, whatever that is. I have people that have left working for me and gone to other states and call me back and say, wow, you really set me up. They don't do any of this out here. They have no idea. I'm like big man on campus out here. They have they just aren't doing it. So it's really
Cutting edge West Coast technology, baby. Now, this house, 966 Chilling Way, Mango, I can give you the address because. But it's all new electrical. Could you briefly describe electrical? I'll just preface with saying that the set of plans was pretty light on electrical details, to say the least. But so Rich worked with myself and the owner to put in the electrical details that needed to happen. And I initially did myself because I knew we wanted a new 200 amp panel. 100 amps was not going to cut it on this job. But just tell us a little bit about, if you would, this particular job, and how it went for you.
As a lot of the remodels do, we show existing stuff that wants to remain, but the reality is with the new stuff. Just removing that and start fresh.
So it's a pretty good point. The scope of this work, there's a point in construction where the scope of the work gets large enough where it's even though it sounds good in the planning stages to, well, yeah, we can leave these, these duplex outlet, we can leave this stuff is really, at some point, you got to make the decision to, are you going to leave anything? And in this case, it was decided way back when I got involved, it was like, no, we're not going to see none of that. Gone, abandoned, all new, everything. Except for a couple of rooms where we left switch lights intact to existing ceiling fixtures that were going to stay. Things like that. Main wiring from a new panel. Basically, we had a moved panel location, so it made sense to do all new home runs. And I wanted new home runs too. Wanted things now with 200 amps, not 100 amp panel, and a juggling and splitting circuits and stuff like that. I wanted to give dedicated circuits, well, like any electrician wants to do. You want to give and like any plan that's drawn well, that has any kind of electrical plan component to it, is going to give dedicated circuits where they need to be. So what I mean by that is you can go ahead and loop and run all your duplex outlets on one circuit. That's not a problem. But what you can't do is run your microwave and your garbage disposal on the same circuit. You can't run your microwave and the electric, the 110 for your, even if it's a gas stove, still gets 110. You can't run that. So there are especially appliances that require dedicated circuits. And a lot of older houses, older wiring just didn't have enough. So they split circuits and they put more than one thing on circuits and they would throw circuit breakers and not be ideal. So new wiring, fresh, new.
We had some knob and tube in here too, right?
Yeah. Existing knob and tube.
Yeah.
You guys know what that is? So Jim told you about Romex, right? I showed you Romex, right, which is a shielded cable, sheath cable, basically color coded, right? This number 12. Yeah. Color coded, the white, the yellow, there's orange. Knob and tube were copper wires in cloth sheets, sheathing. And then for insulation, where they passed over places where they shouldn't be touching other things like wood and things like that, they had ceramic insulators that look like little tubes. They're ergo knob and tube. In fact, I'm trying to remember what the knob is for. But very old-fashioned wiring, and if you have it somewhere in a house, you want it to go away because it is potentially unsafe. So we got to get rid of that knob and tube. And then this will come into play and you'll see later, but one of the bigger challenges here was actually the HVAC. It was actually everything because we had one part of the house you're looking at, new utility room, where there was a new service entry for the 1.5-inch gas line, the 200 amp electric panel, the water service entry. Everything came, all the new service entries were back here. And they had to feed the rest of the house, and they had to get through a vaulted or volume living room that was the main part of the house. It was a total volume ceiling. So it didn't have a drop ceiling with an attic space to hide your mechanical systems. All your systems, mechanical being plumbing, electrical, water, and HVAC. So I had to get it from there across into the other part of the house to feed the 1, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms and 2 baths on the other side of the house. I think,
Hey, Rodney.
Yes.
How old is Romex cable?
well, I don't know. When was that? It's like 50s.
Oh, okay. So that,
Yeah, I think it's just, do you think it was earlier or newer?
I thought it was maybe a little newer than that.
Yeah, I think it's 50s. It's possible it's even 40s, but I'm pretty sure it's 50s. But well, it'd be an easy one to find out. Somebody can look at another phone.
Wiring, and by the time you
Give us the
modify
answer.
it, try to be attached back onto some old circuits, whether it's not tube, it's definitely out, but it's installed with it. So new circuits all the way through, appliance circuits the way they should be, weatherproof outlets, dedicated circuits on the outside, spas or air conditioners.
And then big stubs, for the AC. We had AC going in. We knew we had a spa going in that wasn't permitted, that was going to go in after the final. So we had to get a stub there, and we had to get our line sets in the wall for the HVAC, which we'll cover in another module. But a lot of planning that wasn't on the plans. It just has to get done, which is the really cool thing about being a builder and having good relationships with subs. And I find in this line of work, the better the builder I became, it's because the more I knew about the sub trades. The more I knew about my subs and their trades, the more I could vet their work and especially their contracts. What I mean by vet is before I enter into a contract with a subcontractor to do his bit on a plan that I'm giving one overall number to do, I need to vet that guy's bid. I need to make sure he sees what is on the plan and not just his version of it, right? Because that happens, man. You just take some guy's bid and it's X amount and he says it's per plan, and then push comes to shove, you go, well, hey, well, what about that? And he goes, well, yeah, I didn't have that on that. It's not in mine. So the more you know about your sub's work, better builder you're gonna be.
Tesla outlet or car charging outlets
Right.
now, the future solar, the attics or roof, they're mandated now to have faces of the panel and a conduit to the roof.
Really, where are we putting that? Is that, are we just doing a stub for that? Then? Is that what we're doing?
So we have, empty conduit up to the roof line to where
So we have to do things now. In the last 2 years, 2 to 4 years, the city of Santa Barbara, the county of Santa Barbara, the state of California has mandated certain things that have to do with electrical code. So we used to build with the UBC, Uniform Building Code. About 12 years ago, we adopted the IBC, which is the International Building Code. It standardized a lot of things. We still use UPC, which is Uniform Plumbing Code, and we still use UEC, which is the Uniform Electrical Code. So a lot of that stuff hasn't changed, but a lot of it has. And so now in Santa Barbara, you have to stub for solar. You're not required to put solar on your roof, but you have to have a stub for it. You have to have the conduit in place. You have to have everything in place to be able to plug it in, pull it down to an inverter for photovoltaic panels on your roof. You have to have, well, now you have to have an all electric house. You know that, right? Does anybody not know that? You can't have gas in Santa Barbara.
Not even for stove.
Nada. No gas, no natural gas, no propane. New house, or if your building affects over X percentage of the building envelope, 50% or something like that. There's some standard. If you go beyond that, then gas is gone, man. So you can remodel up to a certain percentage of the building envelope, square foot wise, and you can continue to use your natural gas, or in the case of, Paradise or someplace like that, propane gas. But if you're building new, or if you're remodeling over X percent, I think it's over 50%, might be more than that, you can't use gas. No gas appliances, no gas stoves, no gas water heater. Now, electric stoves are okay. They've come a ways, right? Electric heat, that's come a ways. There's a lot of things happening with electric heat. Heating water, the recovery rate of heating water electrically is not on par with gas, and it hasn't. And it doesn't look like it might get there anytime soon. So that's a real drag. And it's mostly the recovery rate. If you've got all the time in the world, yes, electrical will heat, it'll heat water, right? But you want an on-demand heater, you say? You want an on-demand heater? Hey, you can't have that electrically, at least not now. Maybe they'll come up with that, but right now, if you want a gas on-demand heater, you have to upsize your gas to a minimum 1 1/4. So your old 3/4 inch gas line that's feeding your house and your stove and your forced air unit and whatever else has gas in your house. What else has gas in your house? Stove, your forced air unit, any wall units. Are there any other gas appliances in the house? Maybe your pool heater or something like that. You have a 3/4 gas line. That's the ID, inside diameter. 1 1/4 now to feed a on-demand water heater, where you're not heating water or keeping a vessel full of water hot. And by the way, they're not hot water heaters. Okay. So please don't ever let me catch you saying hot water heater. It's a water heater. How can you heat hot water? It's already hot, man. It's not a hot water heater. It's a water heater. Okay, one of my pet peeves. Tongue in cheek, though. Don't forget. But it's really changed, right? Electrical is, we're going to be relying more and more on electrical and less on gas. Who knows why? Why are we phasing out gas in California? Greenhouse gas emissions is why. I didn't let anybody answer. Somebody had that on the tip of their tongue. Greenhouse gas emissions. It's a real thing. I'm neutral about it, but not really. I don't want to phase out gas. I am always going to use natural gas. As long as I can use natural gas, I'm gonna use natural gas. I have a cottage on my property, so we have a house. We have a cottage. We live in the cottage a lot. In fact, starting tomorrow night, we'll be in there for 4 nights. We've been back in our house for 8 nights. Prior to that, we were out for 22 nights. So back in our cottage, we have 2 ways to heat it. One is a fireplace that's gas that I just click and it leaps into flames, gas flames. It's beautiful and it's a beautiful surround. It's in the corner and it does heat the room. And the fan comes on after about 10 minutes and blows hot air when it gets hot. It's just a great thing. And then I also have a mini split. You guys know what a mini split is? Shake, Louis shaking his head. Anybody else? Mini split? No? Where's Flavio? No? Mini splits? Nobody. Okay. So mini splits are all the rage. They're electrical. And they're those things that you see mounted high. They're big. They're white or beige. And they are for electrical and they're heat pumps. So, I'm sorry, they're for cooling and heat pumps. They're air conditioners and they have a heat pump capacity too. So they're for hot and cold. And they use electric and Freon, and they're pretty efficient as far as electric appliances go. It's very clean heat. It's in the cold is really excellent as well. You don't have to do a whole ducting, typical AC system. You do have to have a compressor / condenser outside the mini split. All right, I digress, don't I? The interesting thing for me is sometimes I wonder, what am I going to talk about? And then when I get going, I realize I've built so many places because I've been on the planet so many years and I've done this so much that I could pretty much go on forever. You guys are going to have to kill me and shut me up. Oh, why don't we just start the movie?
Solar contractor could come in later and put solar now. I think I don't even know how it reads, but the new rules are that you have to actually put solar on the roof. I think this when it was, we were prior to that.
So will we just have a stub up there or will we have a box?
And then from the attic, the empty box, empty.
And then he could come and make a roof penetration.
Wherever he wants it.
But that's code these days. You gotta have empty conduits to the attic. And where else do you have to have? You said something just.
Car chargers, I think they're mandating either a car charger out in the garage and they're mandating solar.
Wow, cool. It's the way we're going. So let's just do this job here. I know you've been working with the owner on lighting. And I think you did show duplex outlets. You have some code requirements that dictate that you have to have duplex outlets and how many or how often, is that correct?
No more than 12 feet apart. They use kind of this 6-foot cord and vacuuming those 6 feet away. But it's as the wall flows, not across the room, not diagonal, whatever, it's actually as the wall goes. So every, less than 12 feet apart as the wall goes. Any wall more than 2 foot wide needs an outlet on it, which is
Wow, really?
that's new, but newly enforced. It's on the small walls.
Yeah. But code says if it's over 2 foot wide, you gotta have an outlet.
Hallways, I think one for hallways, always. Yes, they can. Yeah, a lot of people don't want outlets. We just don't want, designers don't want outlets anywhere on the house. So they take them out, but the building permit requires them.
Designers.
You have to have at least one above the counter in the bathrooms, above the counter outlets. So we used to have designers who would like to put them down below the counter so you wouldn't see them. They don't see them, but the crew said it needs to be above the counter.
Closets too have lighting too, don't they? Isn't that mandated by code?
I don't think so. We don't put closet. We don't put lighting in every closet. We have people that want them. We do put in a lot of closets, and there's rules about where they can be in the closets, but we don't put them in every.
Where and what too, so they can't have any fixtures that generate a bunch of heat.
They used to be 12 inches out front shelf, which we still do. And they used to all be heat and light bulbs and worry about
And besides electrical, I mean, electrical being the, you know, the 110 that comes from, probably gonna get the sun on your face, or 220, I take it, that comes from the pole, in this case, down a wire, not underground, which it would be in some cases in conduit, to a masthead, and then down into the box, 200 amp box, which powers up duplex outlets for anything you might plug in. All your plug-in electrical stuff like refrigerators and appliances that stay plugged in. But besides all that electrical requirement and switch legs, the AV stuff has got to be, AV and data, especially data, has got to be a pretty big part of your the job these days. I mean, everybody wants data, right?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be almost more because we had to run wires, run future-proof cables. Now that Wi-Fi's really gotten
Yeah.
good, we can do a lot of stuff wireless, but the reality is that we get a wire there, we try to anyways, because it's a better service. But, yeah, TVs, all the TVs.
Jim talked to you about Smurf tube and EMT. Nope. Conduit, he talked about conduit at all? So did he mention that residential, single-family dwellings and anything residential, you can be wired, pre-wired, wires in the walls with Romex. If it's commercial, it has to be in conduit. It can be flex conduit in some cases, but usually and mostly it's in EMT, which is stiff electrical conduit. All commercial jobs have to be wired in conduit. And in conduit, you run the conduit in the middle boxes and then you pull the wire later. And you can, and the beauty of it is you have these open runs to pull wire and more circuits at different times. And there's open walls to do it. And the reason I bring up Smurf tube is because with the AV stuff now, Smurf tube is a dark blue, like a royal blue flexible tube that's made just for data runners, and that keeps them separate from their electrical runs. And you usually run Smurf tube in a variety of places for future, because we're anticipating more and more. And as Rich says, wireless is great, but if you can get a wire to it, you're going to have a much better connectivity every time, as evidenced by the kind of connectivity and upload and download speeds I have with my wired connection versus my wireless.
Cables kind of going to streaming, so that's happening. And
Yeah.
phones and iPads and everybody's streaming everything in the house. So, you know, the wires just didn't kind of.
Nope. And this blue, this is all data here, right? Typical cat, as a cat 5 or cat?
Yeah, Cat 6.
Cat 6 now, yeah.
Cat 5, Cat 6, and we'll have a rack on the wall with the internet switch and modem and probably even a cable box.
That'll be that box.
It's actually going to be, you know, a hinged rack up here.
Wow.
This is the utility company coming in.
Disconnect. So there's the back of our 200 amp and new panel with all the Romex and cabling pretty much done. And look at these really cool. I love these.
Me
What do
too.
you?
Aren't those cool?
Home run
Home run
helpers.
help.
Look at that. And they're all the way, I noticed
Not
all
to
the way
be
through the
confused
attic.
with hamburger
going up in there. To just keep the wires routed in the right direction and keep them separate from each other, right?
More than 8 current carrying conductors in a hole. Jam them all in the hole in the panel, but for heat, they can't travel very far.
Wow.
Together. I think we can't do it together for sure.
Did Jim tell you? He probably didn't. But what are those things right there? Those, what are those? What are they? They're nailing plates. Strike plate goes on the jam, receives the latch of your door, but I know you knew exactly what you were talking about. So yeah, those are nailing plates, and with that, so when the drywall goes over the walls, you can't see all those wires. You don't even really know they're there. Of course, you probably might have a bit of a clue, but actually I take it back. That's the back of that box. You're gonna go over the whole back of that box with your problem. And I'm not sure how they figured not getting any screws in the back of that box, but any place where you penetrate studs, plumbing or electrical, where you don't want a drywall screw or nail or anybody to hang anything through, and go in and hit one of your wires and short out that whole run. And it's by code. You have to put NAND plates, just like that. You'll see a lot of
Panels,
those.
for heat, they can't travel very far
Wow.
together. I think you can get them together for a short distance, but
But no more than 8 in any given,
you
any
can
hole.
connect them together, so that's really the 3 of the yellow wires. You know. So 3 wires through the That's not.
Well, what about? This fixtures, anything about this job in particular? Well, look, there's Adrian. Adrian works for. Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, what you. Line. Wow, that's a beautiful, now that's a pretty standard 200 amp panel, right? Meter socket.
It's reversed in the fact that the meter's at the bottom. Square D's made this new one, puts a meter at the bottom, changes the height of this stuff, but.
And it's a meters in the bottom because it would be a bit hard to read.
Right, and the main breaker's down here, so your main shutoff's low, and then that's high, it gets more space to get out, but you can also come out of it later on the surface. It leaves the ability to do
Yeah,
that.
cool. And I guess what was I gonna say about that? This is a smart meter too, right?
This is smart.
So they don't have to come and read that, they read that remotely.
Right, and I think, I don't know if everybody knows it, but I think you can log into your smart meter directly with your bill and look at your usage or your highest point of use at any one time. You can see, I'm drawing 10 amps at it. It might not be an amps, it would be under kilowatt hours,
But you can see that, you
but
can
you can
plug
see
in.
that online.
Huh,
if you log
cool.
in yourself. And not
If-
all of them do, but you can have it turned on.
Yeah, Edison, what a company, man. It's so fair. So let's walk through, let's go in and walk through and just, if there's anything, anything you can tell us about the electrical in here that's unique or just something that catches your eye. So one thing you don't see is you don't see any ceiling in here, right? So since there's no ceiling, there's no, what you might see in here, which is recessed cans, which is we're so used to seeing in a variety of shapes and sizes and configurations. And there won't be anything here. Our owner does not like recessed cans. So she's gonna have some kind of a track system. Is that what we've decided?
Yes, we're gonna
And
do
we have
a dual circuit track on the side of the trusses. Running, I believe on the side of the trusses with some energy efficient LED, high efficiency lighting, leading up and down, so you'll get enough light. But we'll have some task lighting down our kitchen. So it's a unique.
So there's nothing to stub for us for rust. Those Romex stubs there are what we're talking about, right?
Yep.
Coming out
They'll be at
underneath.
the end of your track, and then the tracks are along the trusses. Hopefully blend in, mix paint in, whatever.
On the side. I think at this point, we're talking about taking out, we're going to clean these guys up prior to paint, but we're going to take out these plywood gusses and replace them with some solid gusses. Oh, look there. This is the look here, but at least see, so, what about, all this is real. I was asked the other day about Romex, the difference between the yellow and the white Romex.
So the yellow Romex, they started. It didn't used to be that way, but if you look at the colors, yellow is now 12 gauge, white is 14 gauge.
It's all three wire, right? Neutral, hot, and ground?
Well, yeah, some is 4-wire, and so the new stuff has 2 neutrals and 2 hots. So that's, we used to share a neutral with circuits. So you'll still see the white, 12-wire, white 10-wire out there, but all the new stuff is just colored white, 14, 12, yellow, and 10 orange.
Can you tell me what in the heck is What's the neutral do? I mean, do you,
So Jim told you about what the wire gauge means, what that's about? Yeah.
can you tell us in layman's terms how that works? I mean, I can picture a hot wire, live, right? Electricity running through the copper wire.
It's the return back. So it comes in the hot and back, right?
Okay, goes in the hot, comes back in there, so it's a circuit. You can interrupt that circuit breaker. And circuit breakers are made to, they also give you overload protection and heat protection too, right? You trip when it gets too hot or.
New, arc fault breakers that require the arc fault GFI covers arc faults. Difference between the ground and the bare wire and the differential between the ground and the trim the arc faults. I'm sorry, the GFI is the ground faults.
Right,
The arc faults are the differential, if there's any sort of sparky between. So sometimes, even a volt blowout will cause that arc fault to trip. So we get sometimes a lot of, but it's really, it was really doing its job. It's just picking up an arc, and the arc was light bulb driven. But sometimes it's a lamp, they like the old bedrooms used to have 2-wire lamp, 2-wire cords plugged in a lamp fixture. Those cords would get shorted and they were to trip. I think that's part of that arc fault.
So our arc fault I know GFIs are required anywhere within 4 foot of any kind of a.
No, so it used to be 60, but now it's pretty much anywhere. Either it's a GFI or an arc fault, pretty much everywhere.
Everywhere.
I mean, except for some specific equipment.
And those are outlets, duplex and quad outlets. That doesn't apply to switching stuff.
Switching on our lights. In the beginning, our faults was triple. They don't seem to trip now. But it's really caused people. We have a job recently. We're working with some other electricians. Out there, and none of the arc faults would hold. Neutrals get tied together between 2 different lighting circuits, and if they all lights go together, I think so. Lights go together, put them all together. When they're together, the breakers recognize it. So the arc faults have really helped in finding problems that people would never even diagnose before. So it's
Yeah, and then once they're buried in the wall, they're pretty hard to fix. Now, what about the idea of a half hot? Because I know we've got a bunch of them in here, half switched outlets, right? So that's not completely switched, but like the top would be hot, the bottom would be switched, or vice
Right.
versa.
So
Is that pretty prevalent?
It used to be really prevalent, and we still use them a lot, but we don't use them as primary lighting. Here in some rooms, I think you use it as primary lighting, but what has happened if you are dimmer, you have to use a specific outlet.
Right.
Yeah, without burning up the back. Standard outlet, we can plug in, and video plugs into the dimmer, and burn up the plug.
So basically, if you wanted to put your lamps that were plugged into your half outlets, which were controlled by a switch, and you wanted to have that be on a dimmer, you have a few other hoops to jump through to make that happen.
We use a specific device for the outlet and a specific cord end on the lamp,
Wow.
and then the dimmer will do it. So then the lamp will plug into it, you can dim it up and down, and no one else.
He was getting all that?
Yeah.
What that means, what we're talking about? 'Cause a lot of half hot is where usually the top of a duplex outlet, right, 2 places to plug in, would be switched. So the bottom part would always be on, the top part would be switched. That way you could have a bedside lamp or any kind of lamp or a device plugged into that, so that when you came into the room and hit the wall switch, that would come on. They're very popular, but with dimmers, you can't be switching on separate. With dimmers, you can't. Anyway, he explained it better, and if you want more explanation, we can. Suck for your vacuum. I mean, and that's not a good thing for a vacuum. You might think it would be, but it's not. Yeah, so, and you guys ran this, so that's another thing, yeah, I've seen a lot of jobs where, I mean, this is a clean job. Some of the stuff that, this is when you watch an inspector walk around, they want to make sure your Romex is tight.
Yeah, not so tight that it damages the wire, but
Right.
tight enough that it doesn't fall. You know what I mean?
Also tight enough if you have to be isolating the walls, it doesn't blow out.
Yeah.
One of the things
So I bet he didn't say anything about that. So isonine, closed cell foam insulation, right? Dave James is gonna come talk to us one night, it'd probably be my night, since I'm better friends with him than Jim. But closed cell foam insulation is big these days. It's big for vaulted ceilings, especially, but people do it in walls. And I've done it in walls, I did it in the piano house and the walls, and the Romex wasn't, and McCoy did not do our electrical. Did not do our electrical on that. But the Romex was loose enough so that the closed cell insulation, when it went off, it pushed the Romex out. And they come through because the closed cell insulation comes out past the studs because it foams up. They come through with this big draw knife. They go stud to stud, just draw the excess foam off. And if that insulation is floated out with it, well, we had like 6 or 8 places where the insulation was off. Now, when that happens, when the insulation is uncovered at Romex in the wall before you cover it, you can't cover it. You have to fix it. 2 ways to fix it. One way is put a J box through, cut away the insulation, hopefully get enough so you can do a junction box. But any place you connect a run of wires has to be in an accessible box. You cannot bury it. In other words, you can't just splice those wires, just wire nut them together, put a bunch of electrical tape around it, and then call it good. You can't do that. You have to have access to it. And what most people don't want to see in their brand new homes are a bunch of boxes with blank plates. So the other way is you have to run a home circuit. You have to pull that wire out, or you can leave it in, but you have to run a new wire, new circuit. Goes to damaged wires. It's a real drag, to say the least.
It says in a workmanship-like manner.
Mhm.
Well, that's kind of up to the person, right? And it's up to the inspector, of course, but I push my guys to make it better, and all those things, trying to do it better, and they get tired of hearing me, it's not good enough, but that's super important to me. I know, I'm taking care of it.
Are these adjustable boxes?
These ones are, some are,
Because I ain't 5 minutes.
that little tab right there is supposed to be it's like,
You see this here, right there? That piece of wood, it's 2 inches. It's a 2-inch piece of wood. That's 2 inches because the plan called out 14 feet of master bedroom addition. At some point, because I'll probably show you as the class goes on, some more videos and some different systems, mechanical systems in this house. And I'll definitely show you the plan. This part of the plan here is a 14-foot wide, I forget how long, 38 feet or something like that. That's immaterial at this point, but a 14-foot wide. Did I say 14 feet? I did, didn't I? Like several times. 14 feet wide. That's how long the addition was, how wide the addition was. From it's obvious from the existing exterior wall, that's got a plane, obviously that's got a plane, there's no jog there, and then 14 feet over. And that's exactly the way they did the foundation. Exactly. And when they did the foundation, they had exposed the plate on the back wall to bust away the stucco, exposed the sill plate, to be able to tie in for the levels. That was its own problem. And then measured over the 14 feet per plan. It did the new slab on grade for the new master bedroom. And then we demoed the stucco off, and because I took I got the concrete guy to take responsibility, but I also took my responsibility as the general of the job, or as the project manager of the job. That the 14 feet was all well and good, right? But what's really happening is there was an existing hallway wall that continued. That hallway continued, and that master bedroom, before you got to the master bedroom, was a continuation of the hallway, master bath, the whole master suite. It was all part of a continuing wall that was 1310, not 14 feet. So we discovered it. So that wall had to be furred out 2 inches in case, it took me a while to learn this term, furring, F-U-R-R, furring. When you fur something out, you add to it. So that wall had to be furred out by 2 inches to plane with our existing wall. And that's what that piece right there, that's a piece of 2-inch furring nailed to the existing wall. I know none of you were wondering. How many of you were saying, I wonder if they had to fur that wall out 2 inches? Daniel was, yes,
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Lou Daniel.
That's another idea.
So that was also really cool is that they had to fur the existing wall out by 2 inches, right? But the new wall, rather than frame it as it was called out in 2x4, which is 3.5, they framed it in 2x6, which is 5.5. So they got their 2 inches without having to do a lot, just go up to a 2x6, rip and add. That was the only piece of good news.
We use 5-inch rails here, right? I mean, I've been working here for years, everybody uses 5-inch rails.
5-inch rail.
If you get out of an apartment, and you get in and sit in there, it's we still use 1/2 inch, and we're like.
Use half inch anywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not type X 5 inches is the 1 hour firewall, a 1/2 inch isn't. So.
Yeah. So I don't know what that is, but I know a lot of Canada states, use out of California, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just super, I thought you guys were gonna strap a whole bunch of stuff. I wasn't even thinking about how
We
much.
did it, yeah.
Well, you have some hidden. You have the gas pipe behind there and this Smurf tube is taking Davis.
So, yeah, so I think you remember the data stuff.
So remember I said I had to get from one side to the other? That member right there. Hey, that member right there. That's a parallelogram beam. What's a parallelogram beam? It's an engineered piece of lumber made out of smaller pieces of lumber, all chewed up in a whole lot of glue and fiberglass and pressed together to make beams. LVL, laminated veneer lumber, parallels. They are rated stronger than lumber for their size, inch per inch, pound for pound. The next thing up from there are steel, the I or W beams. So we took out, that thing runs 30, 20, I forget, 25 feet, whatever the width of that living room is. Again, I'll refer back to the plans at some point. But that was the back wall. Where that beam is, was the back wall. The back wall of the house supported the roof rafters and the trusses. As you see up in here, those are the bottom cords of the existing site-built roof trusses. So those were the ceiling joists, all the different, those kickers they have names. They're one's for, anyway, it's eluding me right now. But that's the whole roof system, and all supported by sitting on top of the exterior wall, which is supported by 2 top plates and 2x4s on 16 centers, down to a sole plate, down to a slab on grade, and bolted with 5/8 anchor bolts in the slab. And in the case of this place built in the 60s, 1/2 inch anchor bolts, and maybe some openings with headers and king studs and trimmers to carry the weight. So the weight of all that stuff, and the roof and everything on it, was carried by that outside wall. And now the outside wall is gone because we're pushing out the living room. This new space, all that in here, that's a 12-foot extension of the living room, 14, I forget how many feet. But so we had to support that wall. We had to support that roof when we took away the wall. So a temporary wall had to be built in front of it to support it while we took away the outside wall. And then this footings had to be done, and that was prior to the fact to support the posts, which supported the beam. And then all these guys were hung to the beam, and the temporary wall was taken in. And so now we have this big opening where we once had a wall, and we're still supporting everything. So we have this volume ceiling and this kind of appears to be floating up there. And that's what I knew in the beginning. That's how I was going to get everything from one side of the building across this open vaulted, open beam space to the other side of the building, which I had some drop ceilings to work with, where I had the forced air unit and drop ceiling in 1, 2 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. Had drop ceiling in 2 bedrooms and a bathroom in between, and then went vaulted into the new master bathroom and master suite were also vaulted. So, so we wound up furring this out and made a nice big box, drywall box. I think we did it with drywall. I don't think we did it with wood. But that's the supply air duct, taking hot or cold air from the side of the house where the forced air unit is, which is above the deck, above the bathroom, getting hot air over to the other side of the building. And then from the service entries on that side of the building, we got gas, electrical, and water all came, and they're all hanging off that beam. And then we boxed out. So it's, and what we built is, we built a chase around the beam. It's called a chase. And a chase chases mechanical. It hides it. So mechanical chase. So in this case, it was a chase that we hid the HVAC, the electrical, and we had water in there. Well, we had water up in the, you see the ceiling joists here. We had mostly electrical and the HVAC.
Future.
Okay, right. Right, so that tube, that orange tube is a conduit that's available to pull new wire from.
Take a break until 10 after. Come back at 10 after 8, please. Evan, see you at 10 after 8, bud.
This is.
Frank, don't forget, okay? So we're resumed. So the 4 agreements. 4 agreements is actually a book by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I had read it years ago, and it was in my library, and I was refreshed and reintroduced to it by a woman that did a workshop for us in a faculty in service a couple of semesters ago. And I really like it. I try to use it and draw from it, and I think it's a fantastic teaching tool too. But the 4 agreements are: be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make any assumptions, and do the best you can. Simple stuff, right? So just to read, I'm going to read you a couple of paragraphs about this first agreement: be impeccable with your word. The first agreement is the most important one and also the most difficult one to honor. It's so important that with this, just this first agreement, you will be able to transcend to the level of existence I call heaven on earth. The first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. It sounds very simple, but it is very, very powerful. Why your word? Why your word is the power that you have to create. Now, there's the rest of this paragraph. It gets pretty religious. Talks about the Bible and God's. I'm going to kind of skip that because I know some people might turn some people off. It doesn't me, but the next paragraph I find really intriguing. That's the one I really wanted to read to you, which is next 2 paragraphs. The word is not just a sound. I'm going to back up. Through the word, you express your creative power. It's through the word that you manifest everything. Regardless of what language you speak, your intent manifests through the word. What you dream, what you feel, and what you really are will all be manifested through the word. The word is not just a sound, a written symbol. The word's a force. It's the power you have to express, to communicate, think, and thereby to create the events of your life. You can speak. What other animal on the planet can speak? My dog Rocky can speak. Limited marks. The word is the most powerful tool you have as a human. It is a tool of magic. But like a sword with 2 edges, your word can create the most beautiful dream, or your word can destroy everything around you. One edge is the misuse of the word, which creates a living hell. The other edge is the impeccability of the word, which will only create beauty, love, and heaven on earth. Depending upon how it is used, the word can set you free or it can enslave you even more than you know. All the magic you possess is based on your word. Your word is pure magic, and misuse of your word is black magic. Your word is so powerful that one word can change the life or destroy the lives of millions of people. It goes on to talk about Hitler and an ass bite he is. Was. Anyway, great book. It's only $7.88 on Amazon.
Can you repeat the 4 agreements again?
I will. So the 4 agreements are: be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. And maybe the next class I'll read you a paragraph on that. Don't make any assumptions. Do the best you can. You know, do the best you can. You try to do the best you can in everything you do. And so the best you can, my best I can today might not be the best I can tomorrow. Best I can is going to change from situation to situation. But what won't change is my intention to do the best I can. Now, intention is an interesting word. I love the word intention because to me, intention and $4.75 will get you a venti latte at Starbucks. What I mean by that is that intention is basically worthless without some action. It's great when you have good intentions, right? Good intentions are happening. What you intend is really important. But what's really important is what you do, not what you intend. It's not what you intend to do. I don't really care what you intend to do. That's not really true. You probably do care what you intend to do. You really care what you do. Yes, Frank.
A friend of mine told me something once. He said, we judge ourselves by our intentions, but we judge other people by their actions.
That was a very wise man. Did he make that up?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that a lot. I think that's very true. Well, this man has a great integrity. He's guy's got horses and he's really smart. He's a really good guy. This guy that I'm interviewing, Rich McCoy. He's also, I don't think he'd mind if I share this with you, but he had a son who committed suicide. And that kind of tragedy in one's life does things and not necessarily bad things. Because life goes on. And the tragedies and really, really hard things in life are the greatest opportunities for my growth. Period. Or none. No exceptions. Every really bad thing that's ever happened has turned out to be a really good thing because I had to get down and do some work. And I also have to tell you that I take responsibility for all the stuff in my life. It's happened bad and good. I'm not willing to blame it on anybody. Not my parents, my teachers, my friends, not my lovers, not my wives, and there have been 3. Not the police, not the courts, not the judges that have sentenced me. Me. I'm the one that's responsible for the good and the bad in my life. Just like I believe you are all responsible for the good and bad in your life. And the death of Rich's son, if anything, has made it incredible being.
Which is it?
Yeah. So I don't know where that is, but I know a lot of California states are using it. Not as out of California for sure.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know.
I'm just super, I thought you guys were gonna strap a whole bunch of stuff. I wasn't even thinking about how
We
much.
did it. Yeah.
Well, you have some hidden behind. We have a gas pipe behind there, and this Smurf tube is taking data stuff, right?
So yeah, so I think you ran the data stuff free and then left the empty Smurf tube for future.
Okay, right. Right, so that tube, that orange tube is a conduit that's available to pull new wire from one side of the house to the other, because this is all volume sealing. And once this is done, you're not gonna be able to run anything without it showing. But I'm just still amazed with as much stuff that was up there, that there's that many circuits.
Well, there's another thing, I mean, I don't know how everybody else does it, but it just seems like a lot of guys have a panel. And I'd love to have one extra circuit time panel, but when I run things, the amount of circuits we run, it seems like we often fill up a lot of the panels. But, you know, we don't get a bunch of overload tripping all the time.
No, and you
But
don't,
back
you
in-
you don't get it where people turn on their goddamn microwave and.
Right, and I don't want to call it a breaker trip. I said,
No.
hopefully if I required your house, I'm not getting those. I
Yeah.
told someone before, not your number, I said, you have an office number, but hopefully you won't need my number. If we do it right, you won't need my number.
And no, I don't want to give it to you either. See, is there anything in here that, I was so impressed with those runs. Those, what did you call them again? Those things with all the holes in them that they.
Home run helpers.
Those home run helpers. I just can't really see them from here. There's just a whole plethora
They
of
don't
them.
work everywhere,
I think we had them up here is where I saw one of them. So you guys, in wiring this house complete, because there's no stone left unturned here. There are no old boxes, no old wiring, all new circuits, new outlets, new switches, new lighting, new fans, new everything. What,
You remember what I was gonna say, Frank?
were there anything particularly challenging about this house at all? Was it pretty standard? I mean, other than getting across.
just, you know, not being able to use this, which was attic space.
Right, right.
So getting across here.
Which is a big deal because normally in a regular house with site guard truss this bottom core.
It's a huge deal, man. You know, electrical wires are run in walls, but there's a lot of electrical wires that run up in your attic. Can lights are very popular. Who doesn't have can lights in their house? Everybody's got can lights, ceiling cans, and they small ones, the big old 7-inch halos, and the ones that take flood bulbs. But I have 6 or 8 LEDs in the kitchen, no more than that. Gosh, I have 10 or 12 LEDs, but I have a lot of cans in my house, a lot of ceiling fixtures. And if you don't have a ceiling, then you can't, not only can you not have built-in downlighting, right? But you can't have anything, you can't run wire. You know, you can't strap your gas pipe up there. You can't run your gas under a slab. You can run under a house, but on a slab, you can't run gas under a slab. So gas has got to be in your walls. And if it's got to go over, and the fastest way is to go over and lay on top of ceiling or get to your forced area. Of course, in this case, we did have a drop ceiling with the forced area. You know, attic spaces, those unconditioned spaces in the house are where you run all this stuff. So all the stuff that are very important to the house. I mean, the walls and the windows and the doors and all that's great. The electrical, the matching, right? It's nice and cool in the summer. All that stuff happens. And volume ceilings are very popular, especially in Santa Barbara. But volume ceilings with no ceiling volume, open to a gable, open to a shed, open to a gambrel, open to a variety of roofs. In this case, this is open to a gable roof, facing the gable this way, and the existing trusses. And she wanted to leave the trusses, so she liked the look of the trusses. She'd seen some pictures of old kind of barn-like stuff. So as we go along, I'll show you how this house develops and what it finished like, because all that the trusses got cleaned up and it got painted, and we put skylights in and a bunch of stuff that you don't see here. She really pulled it off. The woman, Wendy Mangone, had a vision. She's just a lovely human being. I met her husband on the golf course. So this is how this thing happened, right? I'm retired. I retired in 2015 and sold my business. I sold out Construction Inc. to 2 long-term employees. One guy had been with me 35 years. The other guy had been with me 12 years. I had B1 and C6. I had part of my deal with them is that Bradley had to get a B1 to run the construction end of the business. And Bruce had to get a C6 to run the cabinet business. And they did. And they bought my business. They took my deal. And I was out. My wife and I bought a brand new Winnebago 5th-wheel trailer, and we rented our house for 6 months and took off for a 6-month trip all across the U.S. We went to 30 states. We had 50 stops. We went 25,000 miles. We had an absolute time of our life adventure. And so I had been retired about 5 years, maybe more, 5+ years, back in Santa Barbara, getting away as often as we could. Utah, life elevated. I love Utah. And I met this guy on the golf course, and Rick Mangone. And by the end of 18 holes, we had made a connection. And then I wound up building this house for him, doing this project for him. So, and I wasn't looking for anything to do and didn't need the money, but my core philosophy is to be available for what the universe presents me, because the universe is always presenting opportunities to me, and I'm sure to you too. But I can only speak for myself, and I like to be available for these opportunities. I like to think that I'm available, and that's where the main thing it comes down to for me right now is discerning. You know, is my discernment? Am I clear? Am I clear what the opportunity is? Right? Is it an opportunity? Do I take the opportunity? And also, the discernment comes in when you're trying to do something, right? And it's hard, and it's not falling into place. You're having to work hard to do it. The discernment is, what's the universe telling you, man? Is it telling you work harder? You're gonna just to push through to the other side. It's going to be better and better and better. You're going to finally get there. The harder you work, the better it's going to be. Whereas the universe telling you, you need to go another way. I don't know. Depends on the situation, doesn't it? It's telling you something. Because I don't know it all. That bottom cord, that's what takes the ceiling drywall. And then this is all attic above, which you can you don't have to be all that clean about it. You can just run it forever. And nobody really cares because nobody's going to go over that attic. Now here we have a fairly small attic space. And it's not. This is John Sessor's baby too. He figured so many good things out. So you tell him you saw his little, because Alec is working for a friend of mine. And you still up there mostly?
Yeah.
There, see, mentioned he's working up there, and the guy that is running the project now is another one of my students, John Sesser, who was my active student at the time we did this, and I used him to do a lot of stuff in this house. And he really did a great job. But he's now, we spent $500,000 doing this house. He's on a project now, it's maybe 10 mil. And initially it was 7, but there's no way. It's probably 10 mil and above. And I mean, just the details are beyond belief. It's all part of the same universe, microcosms, macrocosms. Window still has glass in it, keeps the weather out, hopefully opens when you want to. A whole lot of electrical up there. And then over in here, what did I see in here? God, I just look at that. I've never seen these before.
Those are called stackers. Those have been around a long time. Those are what they used to use before the other ones, and instead of staples, and they're pretty good. They do fall loose sometimes, so sometimes even though, but you won't see much of that. I mean, typically guys will just tie, but leaves me so not most of the time.
Well, they're really, it's just clean. I mean, everything's really clean. And these guys are circuits for the air conditioning.
Does it take any longer to do a straight line than it does to do a crooked line? I mean, it really doesn't. If you just have a little bit.
No, it actually doesn't. Yeah, like these lasers, everybody's just so fond of breaking out.
I grew up, we just stuck on, this is a different height here, but we just stick it on our knee, and every one of your on the knee, every study you're on right on the knee, and see what's that straight line.
True. Rich, do you know what this box is for up there?
That's the smoke.
Of course, it has to be a wired smoke detector, right?
Yeah.
Within how far the peak?
Each manufacturer is different. The last inspector asked us to bring the manufacturer specs because they've been different. But they used to be more than 12 feet down. Some are between 4 and 12 feet down. Some are different from the walls than the peak of a single ceiling, whether you're in the triangle or below. So it's really good to reference your manufacturer.
This is another thing I've seen you guys do a lot, which is get spare and empty smoke tube / conduit
for future data runs to places that were gonna be virtually impossible to do cleanly without opening walls. So now what you've got is you've got that tube would get data all the way from the panel, all the way from your kind of main control data box. It would get data, you'd be able to pull it to here to the spot, all the way across. After the house is completely done without opening it up, which is a pretty dang good deal for.
No one thinks they want anything when they build the house.
Right.
It's on a budget.
Yeah.
They're just trying to be
Yeah.
careful and
Yeah.
then later and then they're trying to kind of what to do.
No, it's really great that you do anticipate that. Really, really great. Really appreciate it a lot. Just the job is so clean. So if you guys haven't been picking up your wire tailing, somebody has. If you guys haven't been picking up your wire tailings and installation, somebody has. Electricians are notorious. They're notorious in the trades, in the construction trades. House is done. Carpets are in, the doors are cut for carpet, the appliances are in. It's done. Electricians come in and set finish. And they come to boxes. You just switchblade, cellophane, clipped wires. It's like they just like the electricians are too good to clean up after themselves.
My house had a remodel a couple of, like, I don't know, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And part of it was in my room. And like, way after they were gone, I'm still finding all the wires.
The
that
little clipped
electricians
little
left.
wire. Yeah. Yeah, electricians are notorious, man. They just don't clean up. But so I've kidded Rich about it so much, I think he's really taken it to heart. They never let him forget.
Plus that previous on the job site, now it's part of the cleanup.
Right,
Now, all the kids come from college and they run the job sites from the paper and every sub is responsible for the subs kind of, and it's a little different.
Yeah.
It's changed.
It's a little different. Well, Rich, it's been a pleasure interviewing you. Rich is my electrician. He's the only guy I ever want to use. And it's because he does things right, usually the first time. And if he doesn't, he's willing to come back. And he's really helpful. And he's got a good personality. So, Rich, say goodbye to City College. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'll give you guys and gal, give you a choice. I can talk for a little bit. And we can go home, or I can fire up that PowerPoint. We can take it till 9 o'clock. Who wants the first option?
I'm hungry.
Yeah, me too. I'm not hungry. So, any questions? You have any questions? Anything? Questions? Anyone have any questions? Yes.
How long did you say you was doing electrician work for?
How long has Rich been doing electrical work for?
Yeah.
Since the 60s.
Or, what?
Yeah, McCoy. Well, McCoy Electric's been in business, I think, since the late 80s or 90s.
Okay.
He's been in business a while. He's a real. And by the way, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I wanted to show you guys and gal about Simpson products and deck products, but some pictures I wanted to show you, which I didn't get a chance to do. But I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a pretty big demand for workers, for workforce in the construction trades right now. And in a lot of areas, there's demand for workers, especially entry-level workers too, and in all levels. So I got a couple of letters to my pipeline account from various people looking for people. I happen to know there are some painters looking for people. I know I'm going to have one of my really high-end contractor buddies, not John Olaus, but another one, DD Ford, one of his principals is going to come and talk to you guys. They're kind of recruiting. They want to do some kind of mentorship. They're looking for some people that are interested in going into construction, into project management. If you think they can cut it and go right there.
There's lots about what I want to say is there's lots of opportunities right now in this trade, depending upon what you want to do, and what your desires are, and where you want to go with this, and if you have any plans or what you're thinking of. Lots of places to go, and I don't know most of you that well yet. Some of you I do know, but I'll be presenting this stuff, and if you're interested, I'm a good conduit for that, because there are opportunities. Alec would be a good guy to talk to, because I got Alec hooked up with a guy he's got a pretty good job, and I think you like it, and I think you're well regarded there, and you can go a lot of places from there. It's a stepping stone. And John Sesser, who had a heck of a lot more experience than most of the people that come through here, and in some cases myself in some areas, he got him placed in a pretty good position. I mean, I'd say pretty good position, and he's doing a good job. So all that stuff is out there if you're interested, and everything in between. And here's the really good news. Even if you're not interested, this is a great class. This is a great class because Jim and I will be presenting you with all kinds of things. Hard skills. You'll be seeing how the systems and houses go together, and how they work, and how they're done, and how they exist together, and how they the synergy of how the building trades are all intertwined, and everything affects everything else. But we're also going to be giving you soft skills. And we're going to be giving you soft skills. Some of it will be intentionally. We'll be talking about soft skills. And some of it is just by the dint of James and I's personalities. You can't be on a planet as long as he and I have, and done the kinds of things that we have done in terms of building places for people, all walks of people, and all kinds of people, and all socioeconomic backgrounds, without gleaning a whole lot of information about how the world and people work. Now, I don't set myself up as any kind of an authority on anything, really, except I am a pretty awesome authority on myself. And so what you get from me is you get not only what I have to offer you in terms of these soft skills and the knowledge I hope I can impart, or at least show you, expose you to, but you get my personality. Because what I am is my personality. Just like what you are is your personality. There's no difference. It's what we are, right? And so at my age and in my station in life, I'm interested in a few things. My life is distilled, and it's gotten down to, and something that happens when you age, an obvious thing happens, is that time is accelerated. Time is more precious because time is finite. There's an end to time for me, not for you. Nobody in this room, hopefully, has projected their demise or the end of their time. You guys have got to, like, you're immortal. You're all immortal. You're indestructible and you're immortal. I, unfortunately, am not. But it's okay. It's okay. It hasn't changed much. It's just changed my perspective. But at my age, I just wished that I had somebody like me in my life when I was younger, like my grandparents. Like, I never took advantage of my grandparents. I never took advantage of who they were and where they were and how they came to be who they were. And just incredible stories. If you think about it, think about where we've come in this last 150 years. It's beyond belief. And to have the people in my life, my direct descendants, have come from another country and have come here when there were no, we didn't have roads, we didn't have automobiles, and they grew up with automobiles. I grew up through television. There were no televisions when I was born. And then there were televisions. It's just, there's a phenomenal wealth of history in these small generational things we have called lives. They're not that long, man. So much has happened. Time is so accelerated right now in our generation, in my generation, and as it's accelerating through and into your generation and generations. It's like, who knows where we're going to go, man? Because it's getting crazy. Like the stuff that we're capable of, right? What's hidden now? What is there something you can't know? Is there something you want to know that you can't find out? Because I can't think of anything except maybe the secret to life or how to live past 100. 60's now the new 40 and 90's the new dead. But I say that 100's the new dead. I want to live to be 100. But anyway, nothing you can't know. You guys, the world's your oyster. You're limited by the conception you have of yourselves. That's your limitation. How you see yourself, how you conceive yourself. That's how you learn it, man. You can go anywhere. And I'm encouraged. You guys look like a great group, and I can't wait to see you for the next however many weeks we got together. And I'll see you Saturday here at 8:30. Right? We'll be in 24, and then we'll be in 24. We'll be between classrooms. We'll be working outside too. We'll be doing rally lab. Yes, yeah. We'll have stuff. Have a good night. Yeah, you too. You too. Good to see you, Alex.
Thank you, Rod.
Say hi to John and John. And Shane.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Alexander. Later. Later, y'all. Good to see you, Fabio and Daniel. You guys are part of the shade structure cadre.
Hey, Rod.
Hey, Evan.
So I have no idea how, but I tested negative again.
Good.
Even though I thought like for sure I had it, but I'm just gonna keep testing
Yeah.
every day, and then if I keep turning out negative, I think I'll be there on Saturday.
Okay, good. Yeah, just keep in touch with me and let's talk about it. I know you're conscientious and we want to be conscientious about it. But if you're testing negative, that's a really good sign.
Stay home.
All right, sounds good.
Everybody else says, stay home, Evan. All right. Anyway, we'll talk to you, buddy.
All right.